Hello, everyone. My name is Sumit Verlikar. I'm the founder of Tilden Global Education. We are a boutique admissions consulting firm, basically having a base in India and in San Francisco. We work with a bunch of people across almost 37 countries. And today we keep inviting very special people who have actually been there and done that. So, continuing that particular series, we would love to welcome Rimi Jain, who's someone that I actually had the pleasure of mentoring long back. All right. So before we get Rimi in to talk about herself and introduce and talk about her experience, I just wanted to explain to the viewers what we're going to do today, right? Very briefly. First and foremost, we're going to be having three sections for this entire video. The first section has got to do with applying and getting Rimi's advice on her MBA applications, right? The second would be inside the MBA. Of course, Rimi is a graduate of Duke Fuqua School of Business. So she will actually share with you insider perspectives about what her experiences was as a student in the Fuqua MBA program. And then finally, we will talk about her experiences as an alumna. For she's graduated, I think 2 years back or so, or 3 years back, right? Or was it longer, Rimi?
It's actually
Probably
four
longer.
years ago,
4 years
2022.
back, right? So 4 years back. So 4 years of alumni experience, we'll try to package that into the third section. All right. So hope this is going to be a very interesting one for all of you guys. So over to Rimi. Rimi, do you want to maybe take a bit of time to introduce yourself and then we'll go from there?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi everyone. My name is Rimi. Um, pre-MBA, I was actually a lawyer at the Bombay High Court. I did some work in writs. I did some work in medical negligence. Did some work in the consumer courts and so on. I worked with Sumita in 2019 to apply for my MBA. Got through to a few schools, eventually went to Duke, and I am now working in consulting post my MBA with EY Parthenon.
That's amazing. So a long time, of course, right? But I think the first challenge that we're throwing at you, Rimi, is go back several years, like 2018, 2019, right? And I want you to really think about, a few questions around your application. So, for example, during application, right? What had you worried about the application that turned out to not be mattering as much in the application process? And conversely, did you underestimate anything that turned out to be very, very important in the process?
Um, for the application process itself, I don't think I worried too much. I think I just took it as it came. First of all, I had a really good mentor and advisor in Sumit.
Thank you.
Um, but the application process itself, sure, I was worried about not getting any admits, particularly because we were targeting some good programs, or better ranked programs. But um, you know, I feel like at that point in time, I wasn't worrying about. I was worried more about the MBA itself and how that would go, rather than the application process. And some of the concerns about my MBA were founded, unfounded. We can talk about that maybe in the section about the MBA, but the
Mhm.
application process itself, I went into it thinking either this works or it doesn't, and I have a job and it's okay. So I think I was able to go into it with a sense of confidence, or not as worried as I otherwise would be.
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, Rimi, right, back then, I think you had multiple admits. I think you had Duke Fuqua, of course, with I think a full scholarship or something. And then you also had Kellogg, and then you also had Tuck, if I'm not wrong, and maybe a few other schools as well. So could you talk about how you sort of evaluated your options on which program you wanted to choose and decide where you wanted to join ultimately?
Yeah, and so when we were selecting, or when I was selecting schools, and you advised me go to my research,
Yeah.
ultimately, I think the things I prioritized were a school where there's a community, because I knew I was going into a foreign country. I wasn't sure, if I go to say a school in a big city,
Hmm.
everybody has their own life. Will I make friends? So I wanted to
Yeah.
prioritize a school with a community. I knew I was looking for. If you look at the employment report,
Hmm.
I was looking for schools that place well in consulting because that was the career I had chosen for my sort of post consulting option. So I wanted to make sure that the school places well in consulting. And then at that point in time, because I was doing so much work in RITS, I was kind of interested in a school that has maybe, this was not a priority, but a little bit of a focus in the impact space in some way. So, for instance, Fuqua
Right.
is known for its impact consulting
Mm.
center, or impact consulting practicum. So, I was at that point in time, that was also something I was prioritizing. So, between those three, I think we landed on a few schools. I was really interested in climate change as well. So, we landed on a few schools that I should apply to.
Right.
And my admits were, yes, with Kellogg, Duck, and Duke, with varying amounts of scholarship.
Mm.
And once I got in, to me, it felt like all three offered the same opportunity for consulting. I know, some are better ranked than others, but all three offered the same opportunity for consulting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One gave me a full scholarship, which meant, money would not be as much of a concern. I wouldn't be taking hundreds of thousands of dollars in loans. So then I went with Fuqua because, between the three, it offered the best experience because of the scholarship. And it's true, once I got there, I was able to get all the experiences I want, travel as much as I want, um, you know, eat out with friends. I was able to experience the MBA more without worrying about money because I had the scholarship,
Yes.
versus if I had not
Right.
had the scholarship, I would have been more tight-fisted because I
For sure.
already would have had such huge loans to worry about. So I
Right.
think that scholarship made a huge difference to my experience as well. And yeah, those were sort of the considerations that I had and when I selected a program.
Wonderful. Now, so I'm going to ask you the question that I'm sure that a lot of lawyers who are watching this video would be very, very keen to get an answer, right? Why go to an MBA being a lawyer?
Yeah.
And what was sort of just take us through our thinking as to why an MBA came into your horizon first, being from the law background.
So a few reasons. Actually, personally, both my parents hold MBAs. And they were always very keen that I do one. But of course, because once I went into law, it kind of, it fell off the radar. But I personally did want to move out of law. It wasn't that I enjoy litigation a little bit, but it wasn't really my calling, I should say. Um, and I wanted to see the wider world. So to me, if I look for an opportunity in my late 20s now, at that point in time, if I'm looking for an opportunity in my late 20s to change a career into something that, if I go to school for another degree, I probably have to start as an analyst or start from scratch somewhere. But I'm looking for a, an opportunity that will also recognize that I have some past experience,
Mhm.
and my past experience will add some value, versus me having to start from scratch post MBA, late into my 20s or early 30s. So I felt rather than any other degree, the MBA kind of served that, right? Because post MBA careers acknowledge, oh, you have a pre MBA background,
Right.
especially outside India. I know in India we go right after our graduation, but or when we're still very young, but especially in the United States, MBAs are typically 28, 29 when they start. So everybody has, yeah, work experience, and post MBA careers recognize that you're paid accordingly.
Mm.
The positions and responsibilities you're given account for that. So the MBA made the most sense.
Right. So I think two more questions in this section. First is if you were to give advice to someone hoping to apply for a top MBA program this year, what would that advice be? And then another thing, right, for which is
Mhm.
related to it a little bit, for everyone watching this video who may be wondering if they're good enough for a top MBA program, what's the message that you would like to leave them with? So advice for applying to a top MBA and then message for someone who might be wondering if they're good enough.
Yeah. I guess advice in terms of making your application successful, let me just give a list of things I think you should do. One, definitely evaluate if the school, I mean, most top MBA programs place well into any field you might want to go to, but
Mhm.
look at their career report, evaluate, if that school is really the correct place for you based on your goals. Like if you want to go to PEVC, you probably need very specific schools, if at all possible. If you want to go into banking, most of those schools are good. If you want to go into healthcare, Duke is probably an exceptionally good option. So evaluate, the career outcomes.
Hmm.
Most schools have some sort of philosophy that they align themselves to. Like I remember, the dean of Fuqua at that time was all about IQ, EQ, DQ. So using language like that, I think helps show you've done your research, you're aware of
Hmm.
what, the school brings to you. Use language like that, talk to people at the school, and bring all of that out in your application,
Hmm.
I think those are sorts of things that I would do. Like by what of this, what I really mean is do your research, make sure the school is aligned to your goals and interests, rather than you should obviously mold your story to fit the school's goals and interests. But
Hmm.
more importantly, if the school is aligned to you, I think you will find it easier to sell your pitch to them.
Right.
And what was the second question?
Oh, it was more about, if you just kind of helping somebody who's thinking, are they good enough? Am I good enough to apply?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I did this during my MBAs. Sumit, you strongly encouraged me to apply to Harvard and Stanford, and I self-rejected myself, I think, out of that application. Um, and my learning is do not self-reject. Just apply. Like I know it takes a little bit of money. It's more effort. You have to do your research, do weigh the pros and cons, but don't self-reject. Just go for it. With like I mean, if you're self rejecting, you're definitely not going to get it. Let them do the rejecting for you. So that's,
Yeah.
don't worry about being good enough. Just give it your best shot, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, yeah, and again, not to kind of beat that drum too much, but when I looked at your profile and when I'd seen that, I mean, it's just like those Harvard and Stanford signals were like just leaping out, So hence I was telling you that, hey, you know what, it seems really really good, and we know that you have a really really strong candidate and like a profile to really attract those schools. But again, bygones are bygones, so let's not go there. But I'm
Absolutely.
very
It was an
happy with the
incredible
way.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
but again, everything happens for a reason, and everything's good, and I think you've done incredibly well. You had a fantastic experience at Fuqua, so I think that it's all turned out really really well. So now this is a great segue into section two, which is inside of Duke, right? So now, like, let's switch gears and kind of take away the application hat and wear the Fuqua MBA hat now.
Yeah.
And that's basically where, I'm really hoping that this is the information which is perhaps the least available, in the sense that obviously there are blogs and all of that, right? But what you actually experience as a student every single day in a program is not something that can be very easily expressed. So that's the challenge I'm throwing at you right now, to kind of really sort of really think about the most beneficial sort of recollection of memories or experiences that you feel truly define your Fuqua experience, right? So the first thing that I wanted to really ask you is, you obviously had expectations getting into Duke, right? So what surprised you the most once you joined Fuqua?
I think I was not prepared for how busy it was going to get. Everybody tells you the first year is like intense,
Hmm.
but I feel like it's like a black hole. It's so hard. It's to describe how busy it is, because at Duke, they don't really allow recruiters to contact you in the first month. I don't know how other schools are, but really quickly, your social activities, your school assignments, maybe any extracurriculars that you're involved in, it gets so hectic and so busy. I and then once recruiters start contacting you, I feel like so many people lose weight in those first few months because you just don't even have time to eat. I gained weight because I was eating so much ice cream to to keep up with this busy schedule. But prior to my MBA, I was not the type to ever have a calendar. But now I can't live without one. Like if something's not on my calendar, I forget it exists. So I think what surprised me was just how intense and how busy it was. Like my hobbies just died. I think I emerged in new person, new hobbies at the end of the program.
Yeah. I would probably not advise to give up on your hobbies though. I mean, I know that it's incredibly busy as a consultant,
Yeah.
especially. But yeah, I'm sure that at some point in time you'll find your own way of balancing out everything because there are
Yeah,
lots of
yeah, yeah.
things, of course,
I
that
told my
yeah.
the MBA was so busy that my pre-MBA hobbies died. Also, you have to remember I went during COVID, so there was a little less
Yeah, of
opportunity
course.
to explore
Of course. Yeah,
yeah, hobbies.
yeah.
But yeah.
Wow, wow. That would have been quite an experience. So, when you're thinking about Fuqua, and we always hear about the incredible culture at Fuqua, and we talk about Team Fuqua, I think the admissions committee, is justifiably very proud of Team Fuqua. So, now let's have you describe the Team Fuqua and the Fuqua culture for somebody who's considering applying for Duke, for sure.
I do think there's a sense of community, which is, one of the things I looked for when I was applying to programs. I looked for schools where, current students told me there's a sense of community. So, at Fuqua, I think about 50% of the student population lives in, these 3 or 4 rental apartment complexes on the same street.
Hmm.
Um, the rest live, around there or not too far away. Durham's a small town. So very quickly, even, and I went during COVID in 2020, but even then, for instance, when my roommate and I moved into an apartment, we bought a couch, we needed help with bringing it into our apartment. Like we just put it in the chat, the class chat, and somebody immediately offered to drive us, pick up the couch, bring it back for nothing.
Hmm.
Um, Team Fuqua is also extended to when I was recruiting. I think, Fuqua alumni were very good about making time to talk to us. If you had an interview, sometimes alumni would send over helpful company materials, like
Hmm.
public facing, but they would be able to send like, hey, make sure you read. Oh, here's a presentation. I realize now, at that point, I didn't know. Maybe I realize now a lot of it might just be like, your investor relations, your earnings calls material, your 10K. At that time, I wasn't aware of these things. So I was just like, oh, this is so helpful. Look at everything they're sending.
Hmm.
Fuqua alumni were very helpful during recruiting. And then, yeah, post MBA as well. I think the alumni community has been good, particularly when you're new and you just start your job. They're a good resource to fall back on. So I would say Team Fuqua and the Fuqua community is a very real thing.
Hmm.
And by and large, I think most people had a good MBA experience. I can't speak for everyone, but yes,
Hmm.
but that's what I think of when I think of Team Fuqua. What really mattered to me were friendships and recruiting outcomes, and in both sense, I feel that I got more than what I wanted out of the experience.
Hmm. All right. So just moving on, from the actual experience for the Fuku MBA, what were, let's say, one or two things that you enjoyed the most, and a couple of things that challenged you the most during the
Yeah.
MBA?
Okay, here's what I enjoyed. Two things I enjoyed the most. I won't say the people, like I won't give a cliched answer like that, although it is true, that would be top three. My American Airlines MBA internship. Incredible experience. I had such a fun time. The people I worked with were great. The work I was given was interesting. And, an important perk of working with American was they gave you their non-rev travel perk, like unlimited free flights. They encouraged you to go on them. Well, once paying passengers get on, if there are any empty seats on a plane,
Hmm.
like you could
Hmm.
be eligible for them. So my
Got it.
roommate, who was also at Duke, not my Duke roommate, my like a classmate, and she was also
Hmm.
interning there. We were staying
Hmm.
together in Dallas. On Fridays, we would just say, okay, let's leave at 4 today. There's a flight to Miami at 6. We can go to the airport. And it's only once we got on the flight that we would be booking our Airbnb and car rentals. So
Wow.
great,
That's quite an
amazing,
adventure.
amazing experience. So much fun. And then another thing, and then, this is before the whole Israel Palestine thing, but the school did organize, we have MBA treks. And I did go on the Israel trek, and it was beautiful. It's very educational. They took us to, uh, you know, they did actually also take us to Palestine, but it was very educational, place of history. So I really enjoyed the educational tour that we took back then. This is long before um, the current situation broke out. So
Right, right. No, that's interesting. And yeah, I mean, I can only think about sort of the rush, right? When you just leaving office on and just considering going somewhere on the weekend. That seems an amazing perk for
it was
sure.
every weekend. And it was so lovely. It was so fun. We went hiking, in
Right.
Colorado. I had such a good time.
Wow, wow, wow.
And then
Amazing.
what challenges you asked? I think for me
Yes.
personally, because I came from maybe a non-traditional background, I wasn't even in corporate law, right? I was in
Hmm.
litigation. I was doing
Yeah.
some kind of, writs. I was working with slum dwellers, etc.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I do think I think getting into the program, I definitely, Sumit, you're aware, I had to justify what I want to do and how I would be fit for,
Hmm.
later post
Yeah.
jobs
Hmm.
because you want to bring on someone who's one of the stats that didn't get a job, right?
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but I was able to do that during my applications. But when it came to actual interviews, even for internships in my first year,
Hmm.
that it was a very hard sell. I think, turning my background into something
Hmm.
with transferable skills
Hmm.
was a very hard sell. One of
Hmm.
the toughest pieces, I think, was data management because I just hadn't worked with large sets of numbers and data in the
Right.
past. And I actually
Right.
firstly, I didn't get a lot of interviews in my first year. I got more in my second year after my American internship.
Hmm.
But I was also told, hey, like, we like you overall, but we're concerned you don't have a lot of experience managing data.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that was challenge number one. So like getting my internship was challenging. I did a little bit of recruiting, though I was very happy with the offer at American. I still did a little bit of recruiting and eventually ended up taking the consulting offer. But um, what was something else that was challenging? Maybe let me see. I feel like that's such a big challenge. It sort of overshadows anything else from
Fine.
my MBA
That's fine.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No problem. Yeah. No, we could move on, of course. If you think about the challenge, if something that you want to share, you can always come back to it. That's not a problem at all. So I just wanted to add one more question in this particular inside Duke Fuqua section, which is, you know, people read a lot of stuff about a lot of schools, but there is only certain things that only a student or an alumni can talk about, right? What is that one thing that's no website, ranking, brochure, etc. can truly say or could truly share about Duke Fuqua?
Oh,
Did I put you on a spot? Sorry.
no, I'm trying to think of it. I'm not. It's not a difficult, because I had such a good time there. It's so
Mm,
like what I think of is, the weather in North Carolina is incredible. If I'd gone to
mm,
top, I would have been freezing in the winters, miserable. Kellogg, same, but the weather in North Carolina is incredible. There's so much opportunity to be outdoors. I didn't even know I liked the sun before this. So I just think, once you're done with the recruiting and you have your internship or you have your post MBA job, I think just the opportunity to kind of let your hair down, to relax, to take in the sun. For me, that's kind of what I was not expecting. I just feel like, yeah, I just feel like warm. That's all I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think any brochure can talk about how good it is, to not have you're not really worried about anything and nobody can talk about how good it is. And that's probably maybe across all MBAs, I don't know. But like the weather is so good in North Carolina and it's
mm.
such a great experience being outdoors or yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not to steal your thunder, but I kind of made my decision to join Berkeley Haas
Yeah.
exactly because I had 2 or 3 other M7 admits and then also one of the top European schools. And weather was actually a very, very important thing. I know a lot of people don't really Like people think that, hey, it's a couple of years, just get through it, get a job and
Good.
get out of there. But I feel it was important for me, especially, like just kind of being there in that weather and then hopefully sticking around that area, I think was very important. So it kind of really brought back
And
memories.
I do
Of
want to say,
course.
I didn't realize it until I came to the United States, but seasonal depression is real. So,
Yeah, of course, of
yes,
course.
look for warm weather and sun. It's important.
Yeah, very, very important. The vitamin D, you got to keep that up, right? So, yeah. All right. So now, of course, now post MBA and Fuqua, let's kind of talk about your experience as an alumna for the last, say, 6 years or so. So, what do you believe, how did Duke and how did the MBA change you as a person?
I think the biggest, let me, yeah, I think the biggest thing I've come away with. So I understand socializing better, I should say. And
Hmm.
I don't mean that I approach everything with like a calculated, here are my interests and here's how I
Hmm.
should network. But I
Hmm.
think I understand a bit better. Socializing, at work is what I mean. Like when I'm looking for a job, when I'm in consulting, if I'm talking to a team for a new project, like I understand better that the need to do my research and understand what I'm getting into. Um, before before committing to it, because pre MBA, I think I was trying to get the opportunity without really evaluating if it was a good fit for me. I was just saying, hey, here's how I am a fit for this. And then I was miserable in the opportunity. And that's how I ended up in law. I thought was something I wanted to do, but I didn't really think about, is this something that's a good fit for me and my personality and my interests?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but I think I have a much better sense of how to do that now. So I don't I find myself less and less in situations where I'm miserable. Like I think I'm able to preempt better. And it's
That's
not
good to
just
hear.
yeah, it's not just overall the big opportunity. It's also the small things that you
Yeah.
come across.
Yeah.
Say at work, is this like a small project you want to take on? Is this I'm better at identifying opportunities that really work for me versus wasting my time on things that I know this is not really something that's meant for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say, oh, you should not, you should say no to opportunities. Yes, we should try and take opportunities that come our way, but let's have a bit of a discerning eye, is what I mean. So
Mm.
I think that has made a big impact to my career and my overall experience as a human being going through life.
Of course.
And
Mm.
yeah,
Right. So again, looking back, what do you think? What has had the biggest impact on your career so far? The classroom, the network, the Duke brand, something else?
yeah, maybe the honestly the Duke brand. I think the biggest change obviously is I'm in New York. I'm consulting. I'm not really in law anymore. Um, I think to be able to change geography, uh, function, and industry is really hard. Most people aren't.
Mm.
Obviously, if you're coming abroad for an MBA, you're looking to change your geography, but to change both your industry and function along with it is really hard. So, I think being at Duke really allowed me to do that. And you probably do need to go to a school that is pretty high up in the rankings to be able to make
Mm.
a big switch like this. Even at
Right.
Duke, I don't think it was the easiest, but it was definitely made possible because I was at Duke, because there were alumni that helped me, for instance, secure the internship at American Airlines.
Mm.
And there were classmates that helped me prep for for consulting interviews, and that helped me secure my current job at, uh, EY. So
Mm. So just again, just an overarching question is just imagine these last 6 years after MBA. What do you think has changed the most in your career since graduating? Like in terms of not only like you as a
yeah.
person, but also in terms of how you've sort of managed opportunities and, other things in general.
I think two things really stand out. biggest challenge I faced when I started in consulting was data management, as you would have guessed, as interviewers often
Of
told me.
course. Yeah.
And it was a challenge. I did really struggle. I think I've gotten there now. But the data analysis skills were huge because it's not just a relational, it's like a hard skill that you really need to master. So that was one. And then the maybe the second piece is more I understand a bit better about American working culture now. Previously, I think I was a little more hesitant to express my views in front of my seniors. I wouldn't really disagree with them. Um, I would sometimes wait for something to be assigned to me before taking on an opportunity. And yeah, I'm not saying you have to do that even in India. I just guess I wasn't thinking through how to maybe tackle these sorts of situations. But now
Right.
I know, I've been expressly guided and coached, hey, you should stand up, like disagree with your senior, right? So offer, volunteer for an opportunity or suggest something. So I think I've become better at taking initiative and taking charge of things without having someone tell me what to do. So I think you have to show you're a leader when you apply to these MBA programs. But in the MBA and post MBA, you truly develop, I think, those skills.
Yeah,
If you
you
don't
got to show up
already.
that. You have to show up as a leader, I think, within school and
That's,
beyond. Yeah.
that's right. That's right. Even many post MBA opportunities in your internship will
Yeah.
evaluate you on whether or not you have the ability, the potential to become a leader at their company. So,
Right.
um, yeah, and leadership doesn't necessarily always mean leading people. I think a lot of it is, hey, can you take charge? Can you take initiative? Can
Mm.
you suggest innovative ideas? So, maybe for people in their applications when they're like, oh, I haven't managed anybody, how do I show leadership skills? Like
Right.
the option is, please show that, hey, you've been exceeding expectations at your job because you take charge, you take
Right.
opportunities, you suggest innovative ideas, you're not afraid to see things through. So I think that's something I think I've really grown in during my MBA and post MBA and my professional and even my personal life. It bleeds into your personal life. So
Right. Right. So
yeah,
this is like a two-part final question that I have for you, right? The overarching question is, what advice would you give someone in 2026 who's still wondering whether an MBA is worth it, right? So that's meant for the entire audience. And then specifically, what advice would you give to lawyers? Like the same question, but now for lawyers, right? So I'll repeat that question again. What advice would you give to someone who in 2026 is still wondering if an MBA is still worth it? And
yeah,
then if you were to give advice to law students from law background who are considering whether an MBA is worth it in 2026, what would you say to them, and then how should they potentially, prepare, for the entire journey ahead? So yeah, I guess slightly longer, but you could probably address that as a general and then a law specific
yeah.
response if that's possible. Yeah, thanks.
So, so applying for an MBA in 2026, I do think, if money is not a factor, maybe this is not the advice for these people. But for anybody who is concerned about sort of the cost of the MBA program, first of all, in terms of value, the MBA I think is 100% worth it. Of course, if you are maybe already a vice president at your company, like, or a director or something, yeah, maybe you should evaluate whether or not a post MBA job will be commensurate with your level. But for most
Mhm.
people, I think an MBA, a full-time MBA, will be really worth it from a career perspective, particularly if they are going to a good school, which I do think people shouldn't self-reject, like do try. Um, but more importantly, if money is not a factor, I'm not sure how much I can advise here. But if money is a factor, I think, because it was a big factor for me and that was a huge point of concern. I do think, do thoroughly research the scholarships. Um, there may have been more opportunities previously than there are now. But because it's such a good opportunity, thoroughly look into what options you might have. I know those options would have changed within the recent political environment, but thoroughly look at that because it's such a good opportunity. Don't let money deter you, is what I'm trying to say here. And then the second, for law people, I do think we have to jump through the hoops a little bit to explain our interests and how we are fit for post MBA opportunities. My biggest challenge, as I've explained, was really the lack of experience working with large sets of data. And we can't really make up for it. I don't think you can go and like practice Excel somewhere and say, yes, I know how to work with Excel. It's not, because you have to think of data in certain ways. You have to try and play with it to get an outcome that you want, or tell a story that you wanted to tell, or test a hypothesis or some such. It's just not possible with practice alone. So my advice is, I feel like in the applications, Sumit, what we did was the right thing. We just wrote down, hey, it's something she needs to work on, and whatever, we work on it before the MBA. I'll do some course. I think that's fine. But when you get to the MBA program, it's hard. But I actually do recommend taking some data related courses, because for lawyers, I think that's kind of where a lot of MBA, post MBA employers are looking to see you can work, like financial data, operational data. Like, can you understand what we are doing as a company and what the numbers are telling us? Because companies are run on these numbers; they are not run on words. So I think, as a skill set, I strongly recommend, once you're at the MBA, look into how you can build that skill set, because it will serve you well in your interviews and post MBA as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's one other thing which, I think you and I worked very hard on is to kind of try and convert a legal impact into something that makes sense for the
Yeah,
MBA
right. Like you
applications.
did my
Correct.
resume.
I remember that, right? So again, not to give too much away, but that's also another thing that uh, you've got to really sort of reimagine what you've done in law, and in a manner that is just easy to convey to people who are going to make that admissions decision, right? So I think one of the things is Rimi was a fabulous writer, but also that she would write a lot. You remember those times? And then like it had to really be like crystallized and brought down. If there was a 400 word essay, she would, like, I think, write 800 words or something like that, right? And then you would, like,
How cut it down,
obviously it was
yeah.
all good, but it was important that that's something that you also, the application teaches you, but also it's an incredibly valuable skills to have, a skill to have in an MBA and beyond. I'm sure as a consultant, you probably, if I ask you to write something, you'd probably write it in half the number of words. So that's probably like
I think
a big
it's something I
transformation.
still have to work with, because I tend to do too much and then I have to
Yeah.
try and cut it down versus, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So I think that's it. I think that's what we had for all of you guys today. So we just try to keep this as honest and as authentic as possible. It's like, truly, I mean, it's like, for me, it felt like meeting a long lost friend after a very long time. But yeah, it was wonderful to connect with you. And thank you so much for doing this. I know that an incredible number of people, will really benefit from it. And yeah, we hope to bring more of these, as we go along. Yeah. Thank you, Rimi, so much for doing this.
So much, Sumit. It was so great to see you too.
Yeah.